when you want to build an AI or ML type of workload, right? Ideally, you would have to do a lot of things. You will need to collect your data, and then you will need to filter it, right? And then you need to work on your data a little bit, a pre-processing as we call it, right? And after all of that, you try and analyze your data. You come up with the best algorithm that suits for what you are trying to do, right? And then you finally implement it. Now, after you have implemented it, you go ahead and create a certain endpoint. Maybe if it is a SDK, you would be running it locally, or otherwise you could be using a certain remote endpoint to access it. Now, what we did on Azure is that we have taken few well-defined AI workloads that you can think of, right? It could be in terms of vision or speech or knowledge, right? See, we took all the important aspects of artificial intelligence, and what we did is we put them under one umbrella of Azure. So we created a service that can work as and that can take up all kind of cognitive loads that you could typically have in any kind of implementation. And we created a service around it, which we call cognitive service. So we'll understand more about the service and the capabilities of it, and what are the things it can do, and how it can actually take most of the burden away from developers when they want to build a AI and ML solution, right? So this is one part of it that we'll be looking into, and another important aspect of AI ML happens to be machine learning studio on Azure. So one of the most comprehensive ways to bring in your data and split that data into your test data as well as train data, and then you go ahead and train your models in the most easy and convenient way. So I have a few slides giving you a view of what the portal looks like and what you can do. That's going to help you understand the capabilities of this service. So this service is one of the services we'll be looking into, and the cognitive service itself is also another important service. We'll try and understand the capabilities of it. So what best way other than understanding these things in a way Azure gives us? So what I mean by that is Azure has created a couple of curriculums out on this, right? So AI 900 or AI 100. So the idea is that we'll try and understand these services from what is given in the outline and what is given in the documentation of these both. So we have a thorough understanding of what they cover in terms of AI and ML workload on Azure. So that's what we'll be doing, and let's get started on that right away. So first we'll be looking at basically the idea is to understand AI and ML capabilities, and to understand the kind of services that Azure has to offer, how we can make use of those capabilities and those features that they offer on these services. And this is again not necessarily about a certification as such. It is just that the content that we are going to look into is predominantly covered in these two, standard certifications, just because it makes a little convenient for people to go ahead and try and understand what they're supposed to learn in order to understand the capabilities of AI workloads on Azure. So AI 900 is one of those curriculums, I would say, wherein a lot of factors in terms of AI workloads are discussed. Right, it could be ethics in terms of AI and few important things to be kept in mind. And the idea is that these kind of things are also incorporated in the AI services that Azure offers. If I talk about ethics, and if I say that these are the standard ethic consideration that we need to consider when by building our AI solution, we ensure that those ethical factors are included in our solutions that we build using Azure's cognitive services using Machine Learning Studio, right? So we will see more about that, and then we'll try and understand a little bit about machine learning capabilities on Azure, computer vision workloads, which is again a capability of cognitive services on Azure, and so is natural language processing. It's just about using those cognitive services. And then we'll understand a little bit about conversational AI workloads on Azure as well. We'll see what Azure has in that aspect. A common machine learning workloads that you will typically notice are, sometimes you might have to do a little bit of anomaly detection, right? Or you could be using computer vision for your object detection or classification type scenarios, right? Or there could be natural language processing wherein you are trying to draw a certain intent out of a user's utterance. When a user tries to say you something, you just want to pull off that intent so that you can go ahead and execute a certain task based on the intent that has been captured out of the user's utterance or what the user says, right? So natural language processing also happens to be one of the very common type of workloads that we see when it comes to AI. And conversational AI has got to do all with the bot services. The way we use bots in various marketing scenarios, sales scenarios, or customer support scenarios, right? It's about building those type of services as well. So when we see these services, it does not mean that it is just something that we need to build this from the scratch on Azure. Now, most of these things that you are seeing here are being offered to you as platforms, and that's the best part, right? When when they are providing you something as a platform, they're providing that to you with a bunch of different features that you can use in order to make your solutions a lot more efficient. And then those features could be in terms of scale, in terms of optimization, in terms of monitoring, right? So those kind of capabilities make these platforms very attractive to use for various customers. And of course, there is the ease of use, which we'll be seeing in the further slides, that makes this very attractive to be used by anyone. And they give immense capabilities in the hands of developers. So what Azure provides in those platforms that we discussed here, right? So in each of these platforms, they provide a storage, because when we say we are trying to pull off some data processing, or when we are trying to work on those artificial intelligence workloads in terms of vision or speech, or some kind of a text data, uh, uh, obviously there happens to be a lot of storage, right? So what we say on Azure is our platform is going to handle that part for you. You don't really need to worry about it. We are going to make things very convenient. We're going to make things very easy. Or even it could be in terms of migration, right? You have a lot of data that you are currently using on your on-premise, and which you use for your AI and ML workloads. And for modernization purpose, you want to switch to Azure, right? And you want to bring all of that data here on Azure so that you can use Azure's compute and cognitive services, machine learning services in order to process that data and use it for you, right? So those type of capabilities can be very easily built around the services we have on Azure. We have Azure Machine Learning, and these are majorly the services that we have, right? So whatever we would be discussing on these. For example, if I say going forward somewhere you see vision, it falls under this, right? Or if you will see somewhere knowledge or Lewis, right? Knowledge or Lewis, it falls under this. Or it could be even something like search. They're all part of cognitive services. So as and how we look at those services, I'll tell you the capabilities, and I'll also tell you it forms a part of cognitive service. So is the case with this, and we'll also see what Azure has in store in terms of creating smart agents or dumb bots as well. So you get a platform where you can bring your data, and you can train them in a very convenient and easy way, and then you can deploy it, which will give you a exposed endpoint, right, which is typically a URI, and you can make calls to this particular endpoint to have your data processed, right? So if you're wondering that, okay, this all sounds good, maybe I can send my data and I can have it processed, all that is fine, but what if I want to do something locally? So at this point, we are specifically looking into the capabilities on the cloud. Azure does not really, bring that kind of capability unless you have a edge compute, which is a different service that Azure offers. Pretty much things run on the cloud, right? So we have a suite of services that we'll be seeing, and it's a cloud-based platform for developing and managing different type of bots that you can create here. So normally speaking, when we talk about risks or vulnerabilities associated with AI, we have a bunch of things that concern many developers or many people who work on this type of workloads, right? And this is something that even as a AI developer, we need to keep in our mind as well, right? Bias could affect the result. I mean, when it comes to a bank loan approval, there should not be any factor which uh, which increases a certain degree or a bias to different type of loaners who could be getting a loan from bank, right? And errors are definitely going to cause harm in terms of response rates, right? So if the quick response is required at any point of time, and if our AI system is not able to do that, it's definitely a big deal and needs to be handled. Data could be exposed, having that data kept in a secure way. And even when the transit is happening, maybe you use your SSL or TLS encryption, and all of those things are also to be considered when we are designing this type of solutions. And we should keep in mind that the solutions might or might not work to certain type of audience, right? You must trust a complex system, and users must trust a complex system in the terms that some people do not actually have the understanding of what happens underneath, but still they have to blindly rely on it because we have implemented the system and we want people to be able to use that, right? And that happens as well. So, and who is liable for AI driven decisions? I mean, if the things go wrong, obviously that's a risk factor that you would be seeing in any kind of implementation of AI systems, right? So these are few of the things, commonly seen things that people we need to consider before building AI solutions, right? So by deriving all of these things, there are a few major principles, right? We can refer them as principles, which are to be considered when we are designing AI solutions, right? First of all, the fairness, right? Bias shouldn't be there. Reliability and safety in terms of storage, in terms of transit, privacy and security, so that right people are able to access the right part of your AI service, right capabilities of your AI service. Inclusiveness, it has to be inclusive of all kind of audience, right? And then the transparency of the system, as well as accountability as to who has to be held charged for anything that goes wrong, anything that causes some problem. So these are principles of responsible AI which we have to always keep in our mind when we are designing AI solutions. And what we do on Azure is we ensure that the services that we offer in terms of platform offering ensures that they give you their own percentage of transparency, accountability, privacy, reliability, fairness, inclusiveness, basically all the principles of AI, right? So it's a platform feature, and you get all of it, and you have total control over each of these parts. Now, one of the services that you will find in AI 100 is machine learning. So this is where we have a certain amount of data, and we want to train our data to maybe do predictions, right? And we have Azure ML Workspace, which is actually one of the services that you can create on Azure. You have Azure account, you can create AI ML Workspace. Now, how this workspace works is you bring in your data, and you'll be given your compute that you would require, right? And in the portal, the platform itself allows you to just upload your data. It is as simple as just clicking a button and uploading the data. Now, again, it's a platform offering, right? It's a platform capability of it. And then once you uploaded your data, the workspace splits your data into test data as well as trained data, right? And then this is really interesting, right? What we also do is just looking at your data and trying to understand what your data has, we actually try and figure out what is the right algorithm that you can pick to do certain type of processing on that data, right? So just in case you didn't catch what I said, you bring in your data, and then you put it inside the machine learning workspace, and then you just hit a button. Azure starts giving you recommendations of different algorithms that you can use to process that data. Right now, that might seem quite vague as to how a platform can do that. Well, that is how the framework has been designed, right? We are capable of looking at your data and trying to recommend certain algorithms that you can pick in order to train your data. And further, after you have picked your algorithm, you get to pick and choose the right columns you want to use, the right fields, right features that you want to use, consider for the training, and then you'll be able to train your data, right? And then you'll be able to get that endpoint from which you can access it as well. So most of the hard work is done by the machine learning studio itself, because you don't really need to. You just have to, if you have used that paintbrush of Microsoft, you know how simple it is to bring those circle and rectangle and draw your designs and all of that. It is kind of simple as that. It's just about bringing your data, putting in the right places, selecting the right algorithm. So it's not about understanding how the algorithm works, right? For at this point, it is expected that you already know how the algorithm works. It's expected that you already know what algorithm is doing, right? The idea is that we are bringing the convenience of using that algorithm in a way so that you can implement your models in the quickest way possible, right? So we take most of the hard work out of machine learning, supply the data and pick the desired model type, and let machine learning find the best model for you. So that's what we do as a part of Machine Learning Studio. And if you just go to the portal, now this little snapshot here is precisely what you would see on the Azure portal when you try to work on your machine learning workspace, right? This is the machine learning workspace. You upload your data, and then you're gonna be seeing the data on the left side. You just have to pick it and then pick your algorithm. It's gonna take care of splitting your data, and then it's gonna also retrain your model if required. So you get to design this type of workflows very conveniently in machine learning studio. So otherwise, if I'm doing things from scratch, right, say I was using something like R or Python to execute the same thing, it would have taken maybe my uh, you know hours and hours together to incorporate the whole thing and make some sense out of it. Here things have become a lot more convenient because of this platform offering, and that's what we say, that the quickest way, right, and easiest way. Now, looking at this might seem like, okay, are you compromising a little bit on the flexibility? But let me tell you, if you look at how the portal is built around these services and how the portal is featured to give you this kind of capabilities, you will never feel at any point that your hands are tied by something that you might not be able to do. It's real easy, real simple to do, and it's as quick as a snap. That's how fast you can work on the whole environment and do it without even having knowledge about machine learning as such, right? You can still go ahead and run a few quick starts and instantly get an insight about how things are working, right? Portal has everything that you would want in terms of understanding the service, and a lot more in terms of usability. This is another module in the AI 900. That's computer vision. So, different applications that we typically see in computer vision, right? There is classification, object detection, there is semantic segmentation, image analysis, face detection and recognition, and optical character recognition. So these are the common type of vision workloads that you might have seen, right? And the services that we offer on Azure are capable of doing all of these in a very simple way, right? We have most of the things that are pre-trained. A taxi like this, a bus like this, being able to figure out that this is a person's face, or some text written on a image like this. That's already done, right? We have already trained the models to do these kind of identification. All you have to do is implement your API calls, make the calls to the right endpoint in order to have your data processed, right? So you get a set of cognitive services, and what typically happens is it's an endpoint. So you create a cognitive service, and then you make a call to that cognitive service and have your data processed. We have a few more slides talking about it, but just to give you a gist, you need a Azure subscription, of course, to do this. Standalone resource for specific services, general cognitive service resource for multiple services, consumed by applications using REST API. It's all about making that REST API call with a certain key and have your data processed in most simple and sophisticated way. So yeah, we'll explore more about it. We'll see more about it as we go on. Now, this is a pre-trained model, right? And this pre-trained model can easily identify something like a person walking, or it can look at the face and it can identify, say, the age over it, right? Along with the age, it can also identify how happy or how sad or how angry or how surprised any person is, right? So it can easily identify this, and it's going to give a scoring for each of these between 0 and 1, right? 0 being the least happy, sad, angry, or surprised, and 1 being extremely happy, sad, angry, or surprised. So a rating between 0 to 1 gives you information about, how happy or how sad a person is, or all of those metrics. So these are just few of them that I've listed here. There are many other capabilities as well. There are over 10,000 predefined classes, and most of the things are already there. If you say, something like a laptop, or a bed, or a guitar, or a water bottle, or a speaker, or a mobile phone. So these things, or a Raspberry Pi for that matter, many fruits. So all those things are already well defined, right? That models have been trained by Azure for you already, right? You don't even need to, work an extra hour to make that happen. That's already done. Image description and tag generation is already done, and face detection analysis is something you can do. Content moderation, text detection, and OCR is also something we'll be seeing on the further slides. You can do both image classification and object detection, again using the portal without having to write a single piece of code. Very simple and very easy to do. I'll just walk you through a little bit of this at the end of the slide. Face recognition, basically just being able to identify the person, right? So along with face detection, we can also do face recognition, which allows you to train your own models. So bring in some 50 images of every person whom you want to be identified, and then just upload it, assign the group of images a particular tag, and just click on that train button, and the training happens in the background. You will have an API endpoint to which you can make the call. It's simple as that, right? So you create a cognitive service, right? And then you create like 3 or 4 folders. You upload the images of the person. So person 1 here, person 2 here, person 3 here, person 4 here. Give each container a ID, ID1, ID2, ID3, and ID4, right? And then hit on that train button here. This is there on the portal, right? You hit on that train button, it's gonna train the models to identify, and it's gonna give that identifier whatever you have given to that identity, right? And then it's gonna keep it ready. It's gonna train your model, and it's gonna give you an endpoint, right? HTTP something dot Azure websites dot net. And then if you make an API call by passing the test image, it's going to return you a JSON body with a response of the name of the person, who it is actually, the identity of the person, right? So it can identify, it can recognize emotions, it can identify try and identify the age of the person, and identify the person as a whole as well. If there's a written text, we provide you the API layer to which you can make your API call with that particular snap of the text, right? And then you can get the response in JSON format, right? We have active OCR that does character recognition in least amount of time, right? And we do this with the highest throughput you can think of. And if you're wondering how many requests can I make as such, how many requests can be handled by the AI service, that is where the platform capabilities do their magic, right? When it is being offered to you as a platform, it is, I mean, highly scalable. You can scale it to, I mean, in just millions of requests, process millions of requests and respond to you with millions of responses at the same time, right? So the volume is immense, right? The capabilities are immense that way for the amount of traffic that we can send in and have the data processed. So you can detect the location of the text, and if there is a form, it can actually identify, and it can put those form in a certain indented format as well. Natural language processing and bot service put together bring a lot on our table. It gives us a capability to build a smart bot by understanding the intent of the user, that can identify user intents and perform certain operation in the background, right? And speech to text, text to speech is something this can do as well. And there are different things in terms of text that this service can do as well, right? So these are a few of the capabilities again of the same cognitive service. We can do language detection. We can just send a piece of audio snippet, and we can understand what language it is being spoken in. Key phrase extraction. If your conversation has a certain critical thing. Let's say you are talking about an office discussion that's going on, and there are certain terms that are very critical to be kept and are analyzed in the background, right, for whatsoever reason. So if there's a webinar, right, and if there is a certain term which is of your interest and you want to maybe extract and see the sentences or the words in which it was used, right? So those kind of things can be done very easily, and that it becomes very critical. For example, if I just place a statement like order me a double cheeseburger pizza, right? Now, a double cheeseburger pizza is something is the uh, one of the entity inside the statement, right? And if I say from Domino's, Domino's is another entity. So pulling out those key terms becomes really important, and you can define such type of terms in your data set if you would like. Entity detection, again, one of the things it does to identify the different entities in your statement. And then we have sentiment analysis that can try and identify how positive or how negative a person's statement is, right? This could be really helpful. I mean, imagine you own a certain product, and every day you have hundreds of thousands of tweets uh, that come on that product, right? And there are some positive tweets, there are some negative tweets. What you want to do is you just want to segregate all the positive tweets from the negative tweets. You want to list down all the negative tweets and you want to take a certain action against them, right? You want to maybe identify the person and you want to, try and compensate for the issue with this product or whatever like that. So when you want to do something like that, imagine a service that can take that entire overhead, which can actually perform a login to your Twitter, which can actually look into your tweets, which can actually look for a specific hashtag, bring those tweets of a specific hashtag into the cognitive service, analyze it into positive or negative, and then keep it in the database in an organized way, and giving you the end result of whether that tweet is positive or negative. Right? It can be accomplished using cognitive service in conjunction with logic apps. So you put a couple of services together, and without having to write a single piece of code, you have that kind of capabilities in your hands as well. It can do text to speech, speech to text. Obviously, there's no rocket science in that. This is something that's least that's expected out of a speech API. And you can take the advantage of active speech translation for over 60 languages, which can be done by both batch processing as well as live streaming, right? So we can do both batch processing of in order to translate the speech, as well as we can do live speech as well as recorded clips as well. Text translation can take the entire PDF or document of yours, and it can translate the entire thing into the language of your interest. And like I said, again, we have around 60 languages that are supported at this point. And of course, you have Lewis, which we'll be talking about further as well, which gives you language understanding capabilities, being able to understand the intents of the user. Now, text analytics is another part of cognitive service, which basically works on the statements that you pass to it, and it gives you a sentiment of, whether it's positive, it's negative, or any key phrases. It's going to give you the key phrases as well. So this is how uh, the JSON response comes back to you with all these values put in a single JSON object. This is what the response is going to look like if you make a call to that text analytics layer. Speech to text, text to speech, like I said, is something we can definitely do. And translator, right? So this can be done on the live streaming audio as well as pre-recorded audio. So language understanding puts a capability wherein you are able to understand what is the intent of an utterance, right? Every statement you make is an utterance, and an utterance has a certain intent. An utterance has a certain entity on which a certain task is to be done, right? And the intent in this case is to turn it on. So the intent is going to take care of that part. So to be able to split our utterance into different entities and intents, and then program certain intents to perform certain operations is again something you will be able to do using the cognitive services in conjunction with other services like function apps. Bot services is another capability of cognitive service wherein you can build conversational bots. So bots need not always necessarily be a simple bot which can just take your question and answer you. but it's also about a bot that can do certain type of smart activity in background. So if I have to say in the service perspective how things are aligned, there is a knowledge service, right, which can does language understanding for us, and then there is a bot service on Azure that you can create. Now this bot service has a lot of different type of capabilities. In terms, again, it's also a platform offering, so it comes with a bunch of services that we'll be seeing. We have that as a part of discussion in further slides as well. But for now, just understand that we can easily create conversational bots using the cognitive services that Azure has to offer. And again, this is something that you might have done earlier using a different platform. You might have felt it's easier to do it on the different platform, but what's the main advantage on Azure? The features that are given to you in terms of resiliency, in terms of scale, in terms of ease of development, in terms of ease of usage, right? This is what makes us stand out of a typical AI implementation workload or workload implementation as we. So at this point, we'll be looking into further, a little bit more into each of these things, and we'll understand how Azure offers us this capability. But at this point, I'd just like to take a pause and would see if there are any questions on the webinar at this point. All right. Feel free to keep putting your questions if there is any, right? Anything related to exams or any other thing, feel free to put it on the chat. I'm going to come back and take those questions again after some time. So AI 100 is slightly advanced compared to AI 900, right? Though by the naming convention, it might seem like AI 900 is advanced, but that's not the case. AI 900 is fundamental, and that's what we have seen so far. And then AI 100 is where you actually implement these things. You understand this in a little more depth from an implementation perspective. That's what happens here. So here again, you will be seeing all these five pillars, I would say, of cognitive service, which pretty much sums up the things that you can do with using a cognitive service, right? And like you can see, there is computer vision, there is speech services, there is language, search, and there is knowledge. Now, the thing with each of this is that when you create a cognitive service of this type, right? Any of these types. So this is my cognitive service. It comes with a very well defined, very well trained, pre-trained, I would rather say, model, right? And this pre-trained model has a lot of data that it is already trained to identify, that it is already trained to, perform certain search on and other activities like that. And you can start making the call. So what you're seeing here is the API endpoint. It's just a URL. And what happens is once you create a cognitive service like this, you can go to the Azure portal where it have created this cognitive service, and you will get the key. Okay, and this is pretty much what you need to make that API call going on. So once you have both of these things, you can make calls to this API layer with any kind of data, and then it's going to return to you. For example, I can identify objects, pre-trained objects, and like I said, there are hundreds of thousands of them that's already trained. A lot of data has been trained already. Or if I say speech, right, speech to text, text to speech, I don't really have to worry about it at all, right? I'm not going to train my model from the scratch. Things have been created in the cognitive service. I just take advantage of it. If I want to do language understanding, if I want to draw those intents, if I want to draw those utterances and entities out of a sentence, right? I submit a sentence and this pre-trained model can do it for me. So you get the idea, right? Whatever I want to do, most of the things are ready for me. I just make a API call, sending my data, and I get my response with whatever the data I want. And really good throughput, very less latency and really good bandwidth, and it works flawlessly, right? We have tried and we have tested in various type of streaming scenarios where we want to work with streaming data which is running on live stream, and the response was flawless, right? It's simply amazing how Microsoft has incorporated the whole thing to make it work in a way so that in terms of ease of use and convenience, as well as the resiliency it offers is simply amazing, along with the throughput that it gives. So one thing is these pre-trained models. At the same time, we understand that sometimes people have a specific set of requirement and you specifically want to train your own models, right? Recently, it happened so that I was working with one of an assignment in here in India, that there was this company that wanted to identify the license plates, right? So if I hold a mobile in front of the vehicle, the mobile should be able to look at that license plate, look at a set of vehicles standing in front of it, and then it captures the license plate of every vehicle, right? And then it does OCR to get that text of every license plate, right? Reading the license plate. Now, if a mobile application has to do that, it has to have those machine learning algorithms run locally, right? And then it can do it. But what we can do is, just like there are certain pre-trained models, Azure also offers us an empty blank place where we can train our own models, right? And this is typically called as custom. So there is something called as custom vision, there is custom speech, right? Lewis. So these are all something that you can build from scratch, right? What you can do here is you can bring a bunch of your images, you can put them here, and you can train your models to do, for example, classification or object detection. Right? When you talk about object detection, you can literally bring those images to the platform, and here, you'll be displayed the image, and then you'll be asked to mark the object which you want to be identified, right? So you can go ahead and mark your license plate with your small marker that you will find on the portal itself, and then you can hit that button to start training your model, and the training happens in the background. It's really quick, and it's the best way it's done is how simple it is. So one way is there are a lot of custom things that you can do, as well as there are well predefined models that you can take advantage of. Now, as a service, what happens is, one thing is that cognitive service, as we call it, where you have the API layer. So that's the first part. And then what we offer you is a way to make your API calls, and we also provide you with a bunch of SDKs that you can use, right? So if you want, you can make API calls to this from your application. Simple use that REST point to make that action. Otherwise, you can always use SDKs, right? So we offer different SDKs, and the SDKs come with, again, a bunch of capabilities. You can use this SDK to train your own model, right? Or if you have already trained your model, you can use the SDK to predict a certain outcome, and you can do all of that using the SDKs. These are the core features that we'll be seeing as we go on. So using computer vision, you can actually get an insight about what exactly is happening in a certain scenario. Just give you a small example of what we can do with this. On the browser we go. Let me just go to Computer Vision Azure. So this is just a place where basically Azure has just built a very small web page wherein I can upload my data and you can get insights. So this is the same cognitive service to which the request goes, and here you can see the response that comes back. So you upload an image, and then here, whatever the API call that happens, it is just happening from this browser, right? That's the only thing. So what is happening here is this is the image, and you can see it has given you a lot of information about what things are. So it's able to identify that this is a certain train, right? And the confidence level, again, between 0 and 1, always. It's a subway, looks like indoor, and then there is a person here, so all of that is able to capture. So let's just take a simple example of one more thing. Let me just try and fetch some images that we can quickly use and get some responses out of that API layer. So let me just open this image. I'll just copy the URL of this image. I just hope it has a URL to reach to. Looks like yes. So this is a URL that's taking me to the image. And what I will do is I'll just put that URL over here. So it's going to run some analysis in the background. It's going to try and figure out what's going on, and then it's going to give me insights about that image. So you can see that rectangle, and the object is person. Another rectangle object is hiking equipment. It's just giving me information about this little hiking equipment that's there. And then you can see everything else is also being detected, right? There's rock, there's hiking, and interestingly, it also gives you a slide description of what is happening. You can see mountaineer, confidence, etc., etc., footwear, etc., etc. And then if you will see here, a person standing on a rocky hill. So that's kind of description that it has tried to make sense of, right? So pretty decent for the kind of capabilities that you get out of the box. This is perhaps a lot of things. I mean, think about it, right? With these are some things that you are able to just out of the box. Imagine the kind of capabilities that you could do with the SDKs and the API layer that is given, and the capabilities of training your own model. It really puts a lot of power in hands of developer to build some really, really intensive workloads in terms of artificial intelligence using these services. So computer vision can do. So this is a little more descriptive, right? Like I said, AZ900 is a little fundamental types, and this is a little more descriptive. So Vision provides you with access to advanced algorithm for processing images and returning information. Custom Vision service allows you to build custom image classifiers, right? You can build your own classifiers as well as object detection models. Like I said, there's a custom thing for everything. Even for speech, there's a custom way if you want to train your own model. Face API provides you capabilities of understanding emotions of the people, understanding who the person is, recognizing the person, and all of that can be done using Face API. And we have video indexer that could be used for extracting certain information or a description of a certain video, right? If you just want to go through the video and you want to try and understand what is happening in the video, just like we saw with the image, we want to understand what's happening in the video, right? So we can use indexer to do that. Couple of capabilities which were in preview until very recently, and just now they have gone on general availability is ink recognizer and form recognizer. Ink recognizer is something that we have seen wherein we had a small piece of paper on which there was a certain thing written, and then we got a JSON object in which everything was written the way it was written on this paper, right? So that's something ink recognizer does. What form recognizer does is a lot more sophisticated in terms of formatting. So what it does is, let's say this is a doctor receipt, right? And then there is name, and then there's your name, and then there is age, then there is your age, and then the date that you visited. So there's the date, and then whatever was the health problem or issue that you had, that is written, and what were the medications that was suggested for you, that was advised for you. Everything is written here. Now, what a form recognizer can do is it can identify that this is a form, and it is smart enough to understand those key value pairs in this form. So it is capable of understanding that this is name, and it is capable of reading that name in front of it, and it is capable of adding that in a JSON format. So it very easily brings that type of JSON format response to you. And if it comes to this, right, so it is going to create a list because it knows there are multiple elements. So wherever required, it's going to create a list and it is going to put all the uh, things in the JSON format like that. So it is an added way in which you can actually get sense out of a form like that, right? Your form recognizer can do that in a very easy way. Computer vision can identify objects and it can give you the precise location of the objects, which can come in really handy if you're trying to uh, pull off the concentration on a specific part or specific frame of the image. You can very easily do that. It can also identify several predefined brands. There are around 5 to 6,000, and the count is increasing. Uh, Predefined models of different brands, right? It can be identified. And then you have speech that can do text to speech, speech to text, as well as translation. Language can also do text analytics. It can translate the text. We have Lewis for language understanding, and we have the Q&A maker that I'll be talking about in a moment. Immersive Reader is another service, but still in preview at this point. Search is very similar to what you would expect out of a online search engine, right? Just like Google, you make a Google search and you get whatever you want, and you can not only search with text, you can search with images, you can search with videos, you can search with audio clips, you can search by just humming the sound of a music. You can identify what song it is, right? So that's the capability of typical web search. Now this search works in a similar way. It is kind of a web search element that allows you to search across the internet for different things that might be required by you, right? When you're running a AI type workload, it can scan through the entire internet, and you can use it as an API layer, right? You can use it as an API search engine to which you can make your calls, and you can get information about whatever you are looking for. Bot service is one of the major things that is covered as a part of AI 100, right? Because this is what, and if you will see in AI 100, almost 60 to 70%, I would say, of the content is taken by this bot service. So, what exactly is it that makes this so important in terms of Azure's cognitive services? That its capability in terms of connectivity, right? You can connect it with different endpoints. Like you can create a bot service on Azure, and you can integrate it very easily with, let's say, something like Facebook chat, or Teams chat, or Slack chat, or chat on Skype, right? Or a Telegram. So there are various endpoints that you can create a bot and you can connect it to. And of course, apart from all of this, there is a capability of you to use this in your own service, in your own applications as well. That is something you can definitely do. But what keeps it, kind of out of box compared to typical tools is how it can integrate with these third-party connection endpoints. Now, using this service, we can build different type of bots, and we can give them capabilities of performing certain activity in the background. Let me give you an example. Let's say I want to scale my backend infrastructure by just passing a command like increase the number of machines to 10. I pass a command like this, and I'm expecting that in the background, my 5 machines are going to scale out and increase to 10 machines, right? I can do those kind of things using bot service. If you ask me how, using bot service along with something called as Q&A maker. Okay, if you're wondering what is this Q&A maker, it's a different service. It's a different service that Azure offers that I can create. It allows me to create that question and answer pairs or question and answer banks for my bot service. So I can create those Q&As in this Q&A maker, which is a portal. Okay, so there's actually Q&A maker.ai, right? So this is one of the sites wherein I can go and I can start making my knowledge base. What is my knowledge base? My knowledge base is going to look something like this. There is going to be 10 different questions. These are all questions, question, and there's going to be one answer for us. So what could be the questions? The first question could be hi. Second question could be hi, how are you doing? Third question could be hi, nice to see you. So these are the utterances. These are the different statements which are basically just like a greeting of hi. And for each of those statements, whenever the statement comes something like that, the response should be hi, I'm doing good. How are you? Right? That is the response. So you can put your questions and your response in a certain on the portal itself. So this is actually Q&A Maker AI. It's a portal it's a web portal, and on that web portal you get to put your question and answers, and you can frame your knowledge base. Now, is that the only way to build a knowledge base? Not really. If you have a predefined set of questions that are commonly asked by your customers, or if there are predefined set of questions that you already have maintained in a CSV format or a Word format, feel free to upload those on the Q&A to bring all of those questions into your knowledge base, right? So that's how you create a knowledge base. It's a collection of your questions and the answers you are expecting for those questions. So you create a knowledge base, and within Q&A Maker, of course, within Q&A Maker, you make a knowledge base, and you connect your bot, to this knowledge base. And once you have that connection established with your knowledge base, you can start making calls to this, right? And whenever there's a call coming from anywhere, it's going to go to the knowledge base. It's going to try and understand what the question is all about. It's going to come up with a solution, and then it's going to return you with the answer, right? Now, again, okay, that seems pretty simple. Is this why I want to use this bot, or is there anything else that it can do? Of course, there's anything else that can do. The way it scales again is very important, right? The scaling factor of this bot service, it can really respond to hundreds of thousands of users, right? So every time there's a new person who tries to chat with a bot, we literally create a new instance of bot when we assign it to the user. So everyone who's trying to communicate with the bot is having his own instance of the bot that is communicating with, and you can have literally hundreds of thousands of such bot instances running parallelly, supporting and communicating with your customers. You get to use a bot builder SDK, which is again one of the ways to keep training your model. See, sometimes what happens is, if you have a certain question and if the question is asked in a certain different way, the bot service might not be able to understand it, right? That could be one of the things that can happen. How do we avoid it? There has to be a way in which I can optimize the performance of my bot. There has to be a way in which I can make my bot a little more smarter, right? And the way to do it is using this bot builder SDK. What I can do is I can keep training my model over and over again by just making a call, right? Or if I have a certain new question answer to be added in the knowledge base, I can do it using the SDK, right? And once you have your model ready, you can publish it to a certain endpoint, and you can connect it with different kind of channels to actually communicate with your bot. So in a way, if I have to just kind of summarize you how things work with a bot service, right? Whenever there's a user who tries to join your bot service, you get a response code of 200, and this is from where, let me tell you, this is your cognitive service of bot, and this is where there is a little bit of predefined things that are existing already, and there is this API layer, and this call is coming to this API layer, right? So once a request comes to the bot, you get a response code 200, and then you're going to request to join, right? And actually, you get one of the instances of your bot that joins in. It is just one of the instances, one piece of code, I would say, one branch of code that runs specifically for you. And then you send a message. The message is received by the cognitive service. It's gonna cross-check with the Q&A maker or knowledge base. Right? It's connected to knowledge base. So it's gonna cross-check what is the response for that from the knowledge base, and it's gonna respond to you with a response code of 200 along with the response itself. So this is how bot works, and major advantage here is the way you design it, the way you bring in your Q&As and you upload them so that your bot can start using it. That is the major advantage of this service. So yeah, you can see the responses you get. There's also an emulator that you can use if you want to quickly understand or test your bot in a desktop application. You can use bot emulator. So this emulator can be, it's a desktop application that can be installed locally, and it can communicate with your bot endpoints that you might have created on Azure. So that's what this can do. We have Q&A maker that I was talking about just some time ago, wherein you can actually go ahead and create those question and answer pairs, right? So Q&A maker is one way to easily train your knowledge base or create your knowledge base so that your chatbot can take those question answers and it can respond accordingly. I'll show this to you in a moment. Once I just walk you through a little bit of demo, we can see how we can work on this. And of course, we have language understanding, which is in itself a huge, huge capability of Azure to you know, try and bring the intent out of users. See, when you want someone to someone smart to communicate like a smart assistant, the major expectation is that the smart assistant is able to understand your intent, right? That becomes most important. So in order to understand the intent, it becomes critical for a smart system to decode the statements that you make to bring the intents out of it, right? And that decoding capability is what Lewis brings to the table. So what I can do is I can define a certain type of popular entities, right? It could be again something like a pizza, or a certain song, or any type of a verb like that, any entity it could be, right? I can define them, or perhaps I can allow Lewis to pick the entities in the utterances by itself. And then there are utterances. It's a statement that you make as an end user. Any statement you make is an utterance. And the intent is finally what you are trying to do. So your utterance can be something like turn on the light, right? And intent could be on light. For all you know, this could just be a function that you have written somewhere, right? And whenever that utterance is encountered, the Lewis as a smart application is capable of figuring it out that this is the intent that you're actually trying to run. And Lewis is smart enough to understand that this is the function you're trying to run. It is smart enough to even trigger that function for you if you want, right? So that's what Lewis can do in those terms. So, putting it all together, if I have to say, think about it, right? One of the simplest and easiest thing that you can do with this cognitive service. In fact, the reason we specifically have this slide here to tell you a simple or a small use case of what we can do. And the thing is, imagine that this is a cognitive service that can do speech to text as well as text to speech. So what we will do is we can easily start making this is me who is making a request, or this could be your client. So he makes a certain utterance like, "Hi, how are you doing today?" Right? And that utterance is sent to the system, which does speech to text, right? And is going to return that in form of text. "Hi, how are you?" Right? And at the same time, in the same implementation, I also have created a bot service. When I say bot service, you might have figured out by now that it's also connected to a Q&A maker where I have my knowledge base, which has set off all question and answers. So, hi, how are you doing? It was an utterance that was made. Someone spoke it out in front of the laptop, and the laptop took that. It got converted into text by talking to this API, this cognitive service of Azure. And once the response comes, "Hi, how are you doing?" It's sent to this bot service. Now, bot service does what it has to do. It takes that question and it's going to see what is the response for it. "I'm doing great. How are you doing?" That's the response. So it returns that in statement. "I'm doing great. How are you doing?" Now, what this client does is it takes that text, sends it back to this, has it converted into audio, right? Or it is doing a text to speech, and it gets the speech and it says out to you, right? It can talk back to you. So that is kind of how the system can be built, right? That's how simple it is. And in order to bring this entire system in place, right, it will not, if you have few of the services ready, meaning if you already created few of the services, it won't take you like 30 minutes to integrate the whole thing together, right? Using a Python script, you can put all of those things together. So I just show you a view of what the script looks like. However, we don't have a service created at this point, but I'd just like to walk you through the script here. First, I'll just show you how simple it is to do simple text to speech and speech to text. So what you are seeing here is a simple code for speech to text. So you're importing that SDK cognitive service dot speech, right? And then you need the key, right? So this is the key which you get after you create your service, and that's pretty much all you need from your service. And then you invoke this function, the one on line 5. This is going to turn on your mic, start listening to what all you're going to say. It's going to send it to that API layer, get the response, and give it to in JSON format, and you'll be able to see it. Similarly, there is a text to speech here as well. right? I can just uncomment this and you can check that as well. However, this is a uh, slightly interesting code, right? What is happening here is whatever I was talking to you on this slide here, right? Wherein you take the input from the user, send it to speech to text, convert into text, and send it to bot service, get the response from bot, and then have the response converted back to audio. All of that is happening in just these little 30 lines of code. Notice first you're using your speech to text, you're invoking speech to text to take the input from user and convert into text. Then you're taking that text and you're whatever text you got, you're sending it to your bot service, you're sending it to your Q&A maker or your bot service, right? This is where it is going to that bot service, and the bot service is going to take that text, it's going to get that response, whatever response is to be given to you, and then it is basically printing the response here. So if you just see the output of this, it's going to be the answer of your question that you had asked above. Now, once that part is done, you want to convert that answer into speech and you want the system to talk it back to you. So that is where we are using text to speech, where we are taking this answer, we are sending it to text to speech SDK, and then we are having it, give us a vocal response to the question we have asked. So a full-fledged script, right? And you can see how easy it is to build this solution. So that's how we can do this. Now, what we'll do is I'll just show you a couple of things at this point. First, I will show you how to get this key on your Azure portal so that you can make service calls to this. And then we'll also see how does a Q&A maker work, allow you to create those question and answer pairs. So those are the couple of things that I'll be sharing with you in this little demo that I'll be walking you through. Before I proceed, let me just go ahead and check if you have any questions so far. Nope, nothing at this point. All right. So it happened so that I was engaged in a project with a company called as Bosch, and we were working intensively uh, on a IoT implementation, right? And one of the things that we had to do is we had to, along with many other things like ingesting the data and then getting that data and displaying it, using it, dashboarding it, and all of that. One of the things we also had to do is we had to identify who is the driver who's sitting in the car, right? And we didn't want to use any extra step for that. We just wanted to get who's the driver who is sitting in the car, and we wanted to do it by listening to the voice, right? So we used this, and it really worked flawlessly for us. So we were able to make at least 1,000 requests a day on a free basis, right? So you get a basic tier of this free of cost as well. However, it's not recommended for production. But if you just want to test it out, view a little bit of it, you can definitely do that here. So let me just quickly show you how you can create these cognitive services. If you go here and if you just console, this is Azure portal, just in case you are very new to it. And then if you just go to all services here, so you have a bunch of services that you can, integrate, deploy on Azure. At this point, let's just take a look at this AI, this ML. So notice you have machine learning studio that you can create, machine learning workspaces, which was the older model, but still very commonly used. And then we have the bot services that we can create. And then we have cognitive services as well. So if I click on this cognitive service, so I don't have any kind of a cognitive service at this point. I'll just add one. It's going to take a while to load, I guess. Or you know what? Let me just, yeah, here we are. So notice you have different type of cognitive service. See, each of every service that you are seeing here is a cognitive service in a way. Okay, so it's just that under cognitive services, you get so many things that you can deploy and you can work. So notice there's a Q&A maker, there's a custom vision if you want to build your own object detection model. That's what we'll be seeing in a moment. And there are so many other things like you can see here, right? However, just take a look at this. I'll click on a custom vision type of cognitive service. And I'll just show you what the portal looks like where I can go and train my own models. So I'm going to create a cognitive service of custom vision type. So this has to be a globally unique name. I'll just give my initials for that. I'll go for the free tier at this point. That's good enough for me. Let's go ahead and create this. So while this is getting deployed, we had another consultancy project. We're working on a healthcare robot, Mitsi, right? And Mitsi was expected to reduce the cognitive load that typically happens in an hospital. So usually when you go to a hospital, you will notice that there's going to be a help desk where you have a certain receptionist sitting who's going to take few inputs about you, and then she's going to guide you to the right doctor. Now this is something that can be automated, and the next time you go to the same hospital, the receptionist is going to open your records. She's going to she'll get to know who was the last time the right doctor to whom you were directed to, and this time she's gonna know who is the next doctor to whom you have to be sent to. So all those things can be automated, right? And cognitive services can be used to do it, and that's what was happening in Mitsi. We were able to identify the person. Identify by identifying the person, we were able to identify if he's a pre-registered customer or if he's a new customer. And then if he's a pre-registered customer, we were able to go ahead and tell it that welcome back, and then you had come for this reason the last time. Now this time you have come. What's the reason you had come for, and who's the doctor to whom you should be going. All that kind of information used to be fetched in a very easy way. So that is again using these kind of cognitive services. So we have created a cognitive service, a custom vision type of service, and we have created this because I just wanted to show you how we can actually build our classification object detection model. I just want to give you a view of the portal. So once you have created this service, you can go to a new portal and type customvision.ai. So this portal is where all the magic happens whenever you want to build your own models, right? I can just sign in. So we don't have anything at this point. Wanted to keep it fresh so that we could actually show you what is to be done. I create a new project. I'll call it as PRJ for now. And then notice how I can pick either a classification or a object detection model from here, right? So if I say object detection, then I get a bunch of different options, whether it's going to be a logo, product on shelf, general compact, compact one, S1 are a few things that are specific for outdoor and indoor scenarios that you can pick from. And if you go for classification, you have different things. Sometimes you might be trying to do a little bit of clustering, so you can do that as well, right? And then here also you get to pick few things depending on which the model is going to be optimized to a certain degree. So if you pick object detection, you can create this project, and you are pretty much set up with your environment in which you can train your own models. So you can add an image here, and then you get to tag it, right? So I think I might have to check if I have an image. Let me just quickly try to add an image which is there, and let me see if I can just show you how the tagging can be done. I might be having something here in this pictures. This looks like something that's usable. I'll just open this. All right, my image is uploaded. So once your images are uploaded, and typically, let's say we are trying to tag an image of this TV here, right? We want to understand all the televisions, or we want to detect all the televisions. So you will need, like this image, you will need some another, I'm sorry, at least 15 more images of this kind, so that you can start training your model. So what happens is once you add an image like this and 10 other images or 15 other images with TV like this, you will need to tag them. How do you tag them? You open the image, and for every image, you get to add tags like this. And then you get to type what is this object. Similarly, you get to, now if I take my cursor on that, even though I'm not drawing it, you can see that it is highlighting the TV by itself, right? So it has already started identifying the objects for me. So it's going to train itself. And this you got to do for all 15 images that you have, right? And then once you're done with that, you can just click on this train, right? And it's going to train that model in the background. And then you can just click on this quick test. It's going to give you a URL to which you can make the calls, and you can get the responses, right? That's how simple the whole thing is. So this is one of the parts. I want to show you one about the custom vision, and right now we're able to create it because this service is created here. So custom vision AI connects to this service, and that is how it is able to do what it did just now. So similar to this, I also want to give you a quick look at the Q&A maker AI. So this is where we can build a knowledge base for our bots that we could be using. And another interesting thing is, without even having to create a bot, you can directly make queries to Q&A maker and you can get your responses. But you won't get the advantage of that scale, that resiliency, throughput, or you won't get the advantage of the connectivity capabilities that the bot platform offers. That is something you will miss. But yes, to a certain degree, just by using the Q&A maker also, you can bring bot capabilities to your customers. And I'm going to give you a quick view of how the whole thing works after the portal loads. So yeah. So by the way, if you remember, we created cognitive service here. That's how we were able to do create custom vision.ai, right? But now I'm trying to do Q&A maker, and we don't have a Q&A maker created at this point. So what is going to happen is, if you click on cognitive services at this point, you'll be seeing one cognitive service, and that would be computer vision or custom vision, the one that we created just now. Okay, there are two of them because we created a prediction endpoint as well. So this is what we have created just now, right? Now we just see two of them, but you will see uh, once I initiate this, you will see another cognitive service of type Q&A created, right? Q&A maker getting created. So I go to knowledge base. I want to create a new knowledge base. I'll click on this. It's going to say that I don't have an existing Q&A maker service. So I will ask it to create one for me, and it's going to create one on my Azure portal directly. So if I had tried to create custom vision, right, even custom vision would have done the same thing. It would have asked me to create a custom vision service on Azure before I start working on it on the customvision.ai portal. So let's create a Q&A maker real quick. I'll pick the same resource group that was H group, and then I'll give it a name, Q&A HGRP. I think here let's just keep it to basic. Sometimes the region could be the issue because of which it might not give you the right sizes. So now the Q&A maker is finally getting created, which is a service on Azure that actually supports this particular AI platform, right? So this is something that's very common. Whenever you want to work on these custom dashboards, you want to create your own custom vision or speech or Q&A maker, designing your own knowledge base, it will require a cognitive service on Azure to be created. And then that's how the thing works, right? You create a service on Azure, and then you get to take advantage of these development dashboards to develop your application. Looks like there is an issue. Let's try to see what's going on here. Okay. Let's just see what's going on. So let me just create a Q&A maker from here. Oh, okay. Uh, so this is apparently because of the tier that I'm picking, and apparently the subscription that I have has exceeded the quota of the number of compute I can have, and that's the reason I have this issue. Let me just try to use a pass sponsorship, and hope that works. Let's see. Okay. So resource provider, you will often get this error when you're working on Azure, right? So what actually happens is, see, in Azure, subscription is the think of the subscription as a credit card or debit card from which you pay to the services you create on Azure, right? And what happens is there is something called as resource provider. Now, this resource provider is going to serve as the API layer, I would say, of Azure. That's going to actually ingest your request and actually going to process it. Now, what happens is by default, when you create a subscription, you create that payment entity, you will find the resource providers on that particular subscription which are currently active at this point, right? And these resource providers, again, think of these as the API layers to which you can make calls. Now, you notice that the moment I started deployment of my cognitive service here, this started registering in the background, right? So first time when you perform an activity on a certain resource provider, it starts registering it in the background, and that's how you'll be able to actually deploy that resource. So that's what is happening. And I think the resource provider was not enabled. Now it got enabled, and now it's trying to deploy. And I guess we might still run into an issue. Let's just see what happens. And sometimes it is just that the portal, sometimes it happens so that because so many things, and especially if you're running on a free subscription past like this, because what you're seeing here is a free subscription, they work on low priority, right? And during the trainings we usually use this, because of which sometimes it gives problem like this. Okay. Let's just try to create it one more time. If not, I'll just kind of give you a view of what exactly happens in a Q&A maker. So we need to find that Q&A maker. So this is the cognitive service, which ironically isn't getting deployed at this point. Let's just try to give it another shot. Okay. So I guess we are running into a little issue because of my account, and I've been trying to create multiple services. Not a problem. I'll just try and give you a view of what the portal looks like and the kind of things you can do on the portal with that. Just give me a second. Let me give you a view of what things look like. Yes, I think this is something we can use. So you actually get to first define a set of questions, right? And then for every question that you have, you write a certain answer as well, right? And then whenever you actually make that question, it will give you the response that you have written. Q&A maker, knowledge base. Yes, this is what I was looking for. So it's a very small image, but the thing is, you will see that there are some questions and there are some answers. So you can define a set of questions, and you can define what is the answer for those specific questions, right? And whenever you connect it, you can test it on the portal, and it's going to give you the response of the question and answer page that you have put there, right? So that is kind of how the thing is going to work. So you can see that here there is a question and there is a response that's coming from the Q&A maker as well. And you also get to get into the aspect of how things are happening. You'll be able to monitor every single message that is going in and out of your bot service. So that's something you can do as well. So these are just a couple of things that I wanted to give you a quick view about the cognitive service and the things you can do with it. And I hope that makes sense to you all. And I hope you understand the kind of capabilities of cognitive services on Azure. Uh, That's pretty much all I have for this webinar for you all. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope you definitely had some takeaways from that. Feel free to put your comments or inputs on the chat, or if you have anything to ask, you can put it on the chat and I can take up those questions. Or if you don't have anything else, I guess we can call it a day. Thank you, everyone.